The first sound was not the roar of a rifle. It wasn't the bark of a dog or the shout of a hunter. It was silence. A long, heavy, unnatural silence that settled over the Texas grassland. Like a warning whispered by the earth itself, moments later, the silence shattered. Branches cracked, soil erupted. A dark wave of bodies surged through the mesquite like a living engine of destruction. Hogs, dozens of them charging forward with terrifying speed. For ranchers across the region, this has become a familiar nightmare, one that plays on repeat every single day. Before we dive into this unfolding crisis, hit subscribe. It helps us bring you more real stories from the front lines of America's wildlife battles. Because the story you're about to hear is not just about animals or hunters or even tradition. It's about a state fighting for its land and one species fighting back harder than anyone ever imagined. Texas is home to nearly 2 million feral hogs, the largest and most destructive wild hog population in the United States. These animals reproduce at astonishing speed, with sows capable of birthing multiple litters every year, each containing up to a dozen piglets. For biologists, this is a mathematical horror. For farmers, it's an economic disaster. For the ecosystem, it's a slow-moving collapse. The hogs tear through crops at night, leaving fields that took months to cultivate destroyed in a single hour. They uproot young trees, drain water holes, kill livestock, contaminate soil, and disturb nests of native wildlife that never evolved to survive such aggression. According to government reports, feral hogs inflict over 2.5 billion in damage every year nationwide, and Texas shoulders the largest share. This is why the state has turned to a controversial but powerful weapon: organized hunting on a scale unlike anything else in the country. Twice a year, Texas hosts its massive statewide event, the Texas Hog Hunt Championship, a competition that is equal parts tradition, wildlife control initiative, and test of skill for thousands of hunters who gather from every corner of the United States. More than 3,500 hunters join the battle annually, transforming quiet rural counties into centers of activity and strategy. The championship isn't merely a sport, it's a desperate attempt to slow an ecological disaster. During the winter season, from December through February, the cold air sharpens visibility, and hogs move in larger groups to conserve heat. Hunters spread out across fields, forests, and river bottoms, using experience passed down through generations to outsmart an animal that has spent the last century learning how to avoid them. Then summer arrives, June through August, bringing heat waves, dust storms, and long nights when hogs roam freely in search of food and water. This season, hunters face a very different battlefield, one where the animals become faster, more aggressive, and more unpredictable. Each season lasts 2 intense weeks. 2 weeks for hunters to track, observe, and adapt. 2 weeks for teams to refine their strategies. Whether it's nighttime thermal tracking, long-range sniping, coordinated drives, or ambushes at watering holes. And during those 2 weeks, the entire landscape becomes a chessboard where human tactics collide with animal instinct. Texas wildlife authorities impose strict rules to prevent chaos and ensure ethical hunting. Each participant is allowed to harvest between 50 and 150 hogs per day, depending on location and license type. The limit strikes a delicate balance, removing enough hogs to slow population growth while preventing total eradication, which ecologists warn could destabilize other wildlife systems. And perhaps the most controversial rule: no pregnant sows and no piglets may be killed. This single regulation sparks constant debate. Supporters argue that eliminating the youngest members of the population is neither humane nor productive. Hog populations rebound too quickly for it to matter. Opponents claim the rule reduces the impact of the hunt and softens what should be an aggressive pushback. Still, year after year, the regulation remains, standing as a symbol of Texas's effort to blend necessity with responsibility. Among the tools hunters use, One stands above all, the Remington 700, a rifle legendary for its precision, favored by military snipers, long-range competitors, and seasoned hunters alike. In the vast Texas plains, where hogs sprint across open fields or disappear into dense thickets in seconds, accuracy is everything. The Remington 700 delivers it, capable of clean kills at distances up to 300 yards. The rifle ensures swift, humane shots, critical when facing an animal that can weigh over 300 pounds and run faster than most humans can sprint. Across both seasons, the best hunters display astonishing skill, sometimes taking down over 200 hogs. At the end of each championship, the top competitor earns a $10,000 prize, though for most, the reward is not the money. It's the pride of contributing to a statewide cause and the satisfaction of matching wits against one of nature's most intelligent and resilient adversaries. But not everyone sees the event in the same light. Supporters praise the championship as a necessary tool in a crisis spiraling out of control. Farmers argue that without hunters, amateur and professional alike, their livelihoods would collapse. Hunters emphasize the cultural tradition, the camaraderie, and the sense of duty behind the effort. Local businesses benefit from the influx of travelers, boosting the rural economy during each hunting season. Yet critics raise powerful objections. Animal rights advocates claim the competitions prioritize numbers and rewards over compassion. They argue that transforming population control into a contest risks overshadowing the ethical considerations of hunting. Environmentalists question whether relying heavily on hunters is sustainable long-term, warning that the hog population rebounds faster than the kills can reduce it. The debate symbolizes a larger national dilemma. How do we protect human needs without losing sight of animal welfare? How do we balance ecology with economics? How do we confront an invasive species that seems built to outplay us at every turn? Because feral hogs are not just an agricultural problem. They invade suburbs, raid gardens, topple fences, charge at pets, and even injure people. They carry diseases that infect livestock and contaminate freshwater sources. And their intelligence, often underestimated, allows them to learn from every failed trap, every missed shot, every encounter with humans. America is fighting a war against an enemy that evolves with every season. Yet despite controversy, despite challenges, despite heated debates in courts and communities, one truth remains. Doing nothing is not an option. And Texas, more than any other state, has accepted the responsibility of leading the charge. The war against feral hogs does not end with competitions, rifles, or the thrill of a successful hunt. Behind the scenes, far from the spotlights of the championship, another battle rages, one fought not with weapons, but with science, patience, and an understanding of a creature whose intelligence has forced Texans to rethink everything they know about wildlife management. As night settles over the Texas plains, the landscape transforms into a battlefield of shadows. Thermal drones rise into the sky like silent metal hawks, scanning pastures and river bottoms for the unmistakable heat signatures of hogs moving beneath the cover of darkness. The glowing outlines on the monitor shift and dart with surprising coordination. The hogs know these lands better than most people ever will, and they use every inch of it. It becomes clear why no single method, not even statewide competitions, can fully contain the invasion. Texas wildlife biologists estimate that to keep the population stable, at least 66% of hogs must be removed every year. Anything less, and their explosive reproduction outpaces every effort to control it. Yet despite years of aggressive hunting, the numbers continue their steady climb. This is why researchers and wildlife agencies have begun experimenting with new strategies, seeking solutions that go beyond traditional hunting. Helicopter hunts, trapping systems, viral research, and fencing innovations have all entered the picture, each offering promise and each carrying controversy. Helicopter culling, once reserved for remote ranches, has become one of Texas's most dramatic tools. From above, the sprawling fields reveal trails invisible to ground hunters, winding paths where hogs travel, wallows where they cool their bodies, and clusters where entire sounders gather. Skilled shooters lean out with stabilized rifles, tracing moving targets with precision learned through years of practice. It's fast, it's efficient, and it's deeply polarizing. Supporters argue that no other method removes large numbers of hogs so quickly, especially in areas where hunters on foot cannot go. Critics call it excessive and question whether such scenes belong in modern wildlife management. But those who work the land, farmers who have lost entire fields overnight, ranchers who have buried livestock torn apart by hogs, view the helicopters not as extreme, but as necessary. Still, even aerial efforts cannot solve everything, because the hogs adapt faster than anyone ever expected. After only a few seasons of helicopter activity, researchers noticed the animals changing their behavior. They learned to hide under dense brush. They moved silently at dusk instead of dawn. They scattered into smaller groups to avoid detection. Each adaptation forced humans to devise new methods, turning the entire conflict into a continuous cycle of adjustment and counter-adjustment. Another promising tool is the corral trap, an enclosure that lures entire sounders using bait in remote-triggered gates. Unlike older methods that captured only one or two hogs at a time, modern traps can capture 20, 30, even 50 animals in a single night. Wildlife officers monitor the trap through cameras, waiting until every member of the group is inside before closing the gate. It sounds simple, but in practice it is anything but. Hogs test the metal panels with their tusks. They memorize the placement of feed. They watch cameras and avoid areas with unfamiliar scents. Young hogs learn from the older ones, often refusing to enter the trap entirely. And once a single hog escapes or survives an attempted capture, it becomes nearly impossible to trick again. This intelligence is what makes the species such a powerful survivor and such a devastating invader. Scientists from Texas A&M and USDA have explored fertility control, viral sterilization, and oral contraceptives tailored specifically for hogs. But with each breakthrough comes a wall of complications. The risk of poisoning non-target animals, the danger of contaminating livestock feed, unpredictable environmental effects, and the sheer scale of distributing treatment across millions of acres. The result is a sobering realization. There is no single miracle solution, no silver bullet, no simple end to the feral hog crisis. Instead, Texas relies on a patchwork of strategies: hunters, ranchers, trappers, biologists, law enforcement, and entire communities working together in ways rarely seen in modern wildlife management. Yet for all the science and all the strategy, the heart of the struggle remains deeply human. Take the small towns scattered across Central and East Texas. On Friday nights, local diners fill with ranchers discussing fresh sightings, hunters comparing gear, farmers sharing advice about fences or damaged wells. These conversations, though informal, shape entire regional approaches to hog control. A rumor about a new trapping technique can spread across 3 counties by sunrise. A report of a massive sounder, 30 or 40 hogs moving like a black tide, brings volunteers and neighbors together in ways that modern cities rarely witness. In the early mornings before the sun burns away the mist, ranchers walk their fields searching for the signature signs: churned soil, shredded roots, broken irrigation lines. Some have lost tens of thousands of dollars in a single night. Others spend more repairing fences each month than they earn selling crops. And still they rise before dawn, not because they have hope the hogs will disappear, but because they refuse to let their land surrender. Children grow up hunting hogs alongside their parents. Teenagers learn to track footprints, recognize scat, follow trails through brush so thick it scratches their arms raw. The fight becomes part of their identity, a rite of passage not born from tradition alone, but from necessity. And this is why the Texas Hog Hunt Championship matters beyond its trophies or prize money. It symbolizes something larger: solidarity, a state refusing to give in, a community choosing to act rather than suffer quietly. As the seasons pass, the moral debates continue. Environmentalists argue for long-term ecological planning. Hunters defend their role as stewards of the land. Lawmakers struggle to fund research that moves slower than the hog population grows. And somewhere in the middle of all this noise stand the hogs themselves, relentless, intelligent, unstoppable, unless confronted with unwavering determination. They are not villains by nature. They are survivors of circumstances humans created centuries ago. But survival has consequences, and Texas is living with them every day. When the documentary story returns to the present, the camera moves through a field damaged overnight. Rows of corn lie flattened, irrigation tubes torn apart, the soil itself carved open by tusks and hooves. The damage looks almost unreal, like the aftermath of a storm, not the work of animals. This is the urgency behind every hunting season, behind every helicopter flight, behind every trap and every sleepless night. Because without intervention, Texas would lose more than crops. It would lose communities, ecosystems, livelihoods built over generations. Yet despite everything, hope remains powerful here. People are resilient. Land heals when given a chance. And as long as Texans keep fighting, through science, tradition, cooperation, and stubborn willpower, the balance might one day shift. The documentary ends as it began, with silence. Not the silence of destruction, but the sign of a new dawn rising over Texas fields, offering one more day to fight, one more chance to reclaim what feral hogs have threatened to take. If you care about the future of America's landscapes, join us on this journey. Like, share, and subscribe, because awareness is the first step in winning this war. And together we can protect both our people and the land we all depend on.